Floyd Sr., started posting some wild stuff, including that Shakur Stevenson and his team poisoned his son.
Look, man, I'm not going to throw conspiracy theories out there. I'm not Floyd Sr. But I am going to say it smells fishy. Madrimov is all wrong for him. All wrong for him.
But my early read on it is that this is a really tough matchup for Virgil.
Bivol won that first fight, in my opinion.
Bivol keeps talking about throwing more punches. You throw more punches, you expose yourself more. I tell you what, we don't know what's going to happen on fight night, but if Beterbiev wins, Beterbiev versus Benavidez. Ooh, that's violence. And we are back. Chris Mannix, the former junior middleweight champion, Sergio Mora. First show from Riyadh here on the Ring Magazine podcast set. And Sergio, I got to say first, it is nice of you to take some time out of your golf vacation to actually do some work with me this week.
Well, listen, we work at night here in Riyadh. You know, it's very hot during the day, so we work.
It's not very hot during the day.
We work in the evenings where it's nice and cool. And
it's it 75 degrees during the day.
But during the day, in the morning especially, Mannix, I wake up early because my circadian rhythm is off and I can't sleep all night. So at 7 a.m., I wake up in golf with Darren Barker.
Oh, I'm glad you get away because the 16-and-a-half-hour flight to Saudi with you was a lot. I got to be honest. The flight from Los Angeles to Dubai was the long leg, obviously, of the flight. And in the back of the plane, they have a bar car there. And it's got tables. It's got a little mini bar there. It's also near where the bathroom is. So every time I got up to go to the bathroom, I would see your face sitting there and your smile and your grin getting bigger and bigger every couple of hours I checked in.
And hence why I slept 9 hours of the 16 happily. And then finally I got to Dubai, had a few more drinks, and then I slept an hour out of the 2.5 to come here to Riyadh. So I'm well rested. Let's go.
All right. So we're going to talk on this episode about the fights we've got coming up on Saturday. Massive card in Riyadh. The last crescendo headlined by Artur Beterbiev against Dmitry Bivol. We're also going to look back at a couple of fights we saw this past weekend, headlined by Keyshawn Davis. Arnold Barboza gets a big win. But we got to start, Sergio, with the big news that came out on Wednesday. And that is that Floyd Schofield is out of this fight coming up against Shakur Stevenson. Floyd Schofield has, and let's call it an illness right now, that has forced him to withdraw from this fight. So just some of the timeline. Let me lay that out there for you. On Tuesday, we had the grand arrivals at Boulevard City. That's where all the fighters show up, just wave to the crowd and take a few pictures, do a quick interview, and then get off the stage. Floyd Schofield was the only one that was not there. And from what we were told that day, he had been admitted to the hospital. His father, Floyd Sr., who runs all of Junior's social media accounts, started posting some wild stuff, including that Shakur Stevenson and his team poisoned his son. So that's what happened Wednesday. On Thursday, Floyd Sr. posted a video of Junior in the hospital with some kind of leads attached to him, saying he was out of the fight. As we record this, it seems like Josh Padley, who is the undefeated 135, 140 pound contender, coming off a win over Mark Chamberlain last September. He is the front runner to face Shakur this weekend. But your reaction to Floyd Schofield bowing out of the fight that he was aggressively asking for the last few months.
Bowing out. That's nice of you to say bowing out. Look, there's a lot of information we don't know. But what we do know is that Floyd Schofield was going to make a career high payday. He traveled halfway across the world to fight a fighter that he's been calling out, a champion that everyone thinks he's not ready for. He believed in himself. So look, we were applauding Floyd Schofield for everything that he was doing. And I don't know what to think of it. I mean, is he really ill? Is he really sick? Was he having issues with his weight? There was a 3-day weigh-in that he had to make.
So let's bring that up. So
British board.
So in the UK, the British Boxing Board of Control does a 3-day weigh-in, which requires you to be within 10 pounds of your contracted weight. Now, we're in Saudi Arabia, but the British Boxing Board of Control has jurisdiction here. So everybody goes by those rules. It's in the contracts for these guys when they sign him. That's not the case in the U.S. In the U.S., you have to do some weight checks for the sanctioning bodies at times, but when you get to fight weeks, you just weigh what you weigh on weigh-in. So as a fighter, like how big a deal would you think that is as a fighter?
Well, so I think it was the IBF or the WBC. You have
30-day weight check.
There's a 30-day weight check, and then there's a 7-day weight check. There's both. And you have to fall in line about your percentage weight and whatever that is. But I never heard the British board have to do that. Floyd Schofield looked in great shape. So he didn't look like he was overweight. He looked smiley. He looked happy. He's never had issues making weight before in the fights that we've called. But that comes second to what his dad, Floyd Sr. was saying that he was poisoned. Those are some like allegations that you aren't supposed to throw out there unless you have proof, unless you have evidence. And then they're saying that there was a cream that his masseuse was rubbing ointment that poisoned him. What the hell are we talking about? These are this is libelous. I mean, they can really get in some trouble if they can't.
Shakur Stevenson's attorney has already been out there.
I would do the exact same thing because look, if Shakur is going to be missing out on a payday, if they're not going to be able to replace an opponent, he just wasted his time. They'll replace him.
They'll replace him.
Okay,
there'll be a fight for Shakur on Saturday.
All right. Well, he's not going to be getting paid the same amount of money. But
I don't know if that's the case either. Like, look, let's keep it focused on Schofield here, though. Like this, like I agree with you. The conspiracy theory stuff is wild, and it's a part of a trend with Schofield, who has already accused Floyd or Shakur of having like a mole in his camp during this training camp. Accused him and his team of messing with their passport. And now here we are a few days before the scheduled fight, and he's apparently being poisoned. Like, look, illnesses happen during fight weeks. I'm sure you've dealt with them. It's a unique situation for Schofield because he's never fought over here before. He's had to travel over here, deal with time change, deal with a whole different slew of issues that come with fighting in a different part of the world. But to go out and blame Shakur for poisoning you, that's just unless you have proof, that's a bad look. Unless you're in the hospital and they're telling you have substance X in your system that wasn't in your system before, there's no evidence of that. So I don't think his father's doing him any favors here. I think his father's actually doing him a disservice by throwing all these conspiracy theories out there and letting people just see them all.
I just want to talk about one thing. Look, every fighter, everyone on the championship level especially, has been through the week of the fight where you don't feel at your best. You're cutting weight. Depends how much weight you're cutting.
Cutting weight is hard.
Cutting weight is, this is my saying, cutting weight is half the fight won. If you make it right, then you're going to be strong and you can win the fight. If you cut it wrong, then you're not going to look good and you can maybe, win, or you're going to lose your title.
And you're the greatest example of that.
I'm getting there, okay. Or you can lose your title on the scale. Here's my point. I fought with injuries. I fought with torn ligaments. I fought with broken rib. I fought with cracked nose. I fought with all this because, one, the promoters do not like you missing on dates. And two, the closer it is to the fight, the harder it is to cancel it. I lost my title on the scale. When I was a champion and I fought Vernon Forrest in the rematch, I was overweight by 2.5 pounds. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when you already cut 28 pounds in 6 weeks, like I had to do in that fight, and it's
freaking crazy, by the way.
8 pounds the day of. So yeah, I was the irresponsible one. So it was my fault for doing that. I have no one else to blame. But the last 2.5 pounds, I could have easily given up my title and said, no. I'm just not going to defend it. So if I lose, he can win it. And if I win, then, it's out there. But I didn't do that. I had a responsibility. I signed a contract and I made the weight the wrong way, lost my title, lost my fight. And that's the lesson one. That's what fighters have a responsibility to do. Make weight, train hard, promote the fight, and fight, man. And especially when you're making a career high payday. Something smells fishy here, man. If it was a smaller fight, with a smaller opponent, then I would maybe understand. But this was a champion that you've been calling out for the career high payday in Riyadh season, halfway across the world. This is way too much to not try to not try to salvage. Another thing, if you're feeling ill on a Monday or a Tuesday, aren't you going to wait till at least Friday to cancel the fight? Say, look, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not feeling well. I'm having issues with my weight.
Well, but doing that But doing that,
start looking for an opponent.
Well, that's the thing too. Like if you can't wait till Friday and be like, you know what, I'm not going to do it. That would leave Shakur out in the cold without any kind of opponent. Like I mean, the fact that he is sick, you know, if he's sick enough to go to the hospital, right? Like you probably shouldn't be fighting. Kind of simple as that. If you're sick enough to have to stop training and go in the hospital and be there for 24 hours, 40 hours, whatever amount it is, you're probably not in a good enough condition to do it. And look, we've seen guys here in Riyadh push through some circumstances that they may not have fought under. Like Jarrell Miller, when he fought Daniel Dubois, was like 300 something pounds, had like a 6-week training camp, was nowhere near the kind of shape he needed to be in to fight a fight of that level. Frank Sanchez fought with a bum knee. Remember when he fought Aji Kabayal? Like bum knee. Like guys come out here, and because the payday is so big and the opportunity is so big, they're willing to go through some stuff. And more often than not, if they are, it doesn't go well for them. So, you know, there's a part of me that says like, look, if you're really sick, as much as it sucks, as much as you're going to regret not having this opportunity, should you not kind of back out and live to fight another day?
What sickness though? You know, you could be admitted to a hospital just by cutting weight, just saying, oh, this man's severely dehydrated.
Yeah. You
know how many fighters are severely hydrated the day before the fight? They rehydrate and they feel good. The younger they are, they can get away with it. The older they are, then it has
Floyd Schofield's only 22 years old, so he's a young guy.
Go, man. So, look, man, I'm not going to throw conspiracy theories out there. I'm not Floyd Sr. But I am going to say it smells fishy, all right? Because it just, the week of the fight, man, and where's the proof? You know, a picture is not enough for me. I need more proof. This was a huge opportunity for a fight that you didn't deserve. Floyd Schofield didn't deserve this fight. William Zepeda deserved this fight.
William Zepeda passed on this fight. So
passed on this fight, and that's why we're giving Schofield so much credit. Look, he was out of all the fighters on this card, this was probably the biggest mismatch. But you gave credit to Schofield for stepping up and wanting to be great. But now it's the opposite. So yeah, it's just it's a bad look, and right now he has a lot of explaining to do. So does his father, and if they can show proof or medical proof, and then they can get back on track, and everyone has to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Well, he's gonna have to get to the back of the line. Like I don't see like this fight being rescheduled later this year. Like Shakur Stevenson has bigger fish to fry. Like he wants a fight against William Zepeda. He wants unification fights against Tank Davis or Vasily Lomachenko. I think the next time we see Floyd Schofield, it's going to be at another fight, kind of the level we saw him last time out against the Rene Guiron. So that's the huge body.
And another thing, one more thing about this. Another thing, promoters don't like giving dates to fighters that they can't rely on.
Yeah.
And I've been part of that as well. A lot of fighters have. So if this was a huge moment for the promoter, for Schofield, and everyone involved, and to give him another date, another opportunity like that, and they're going to be holding their breath saying, okay, well, he's going to be able to fight or make a weight, he's going to pull out again. Yeah, it's going to be tricky for him to come back.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about a couple of fights that we saw this past weekend. And let's start on the Friday, which is where we saw Keyshawn Davis have another statement win, knocking out Denys Berinchyk, who was making the first defense of his 135-pound title. Keyshawn dominated this fight from start to finish. He was big, he was strong, he was sharp, he was accurate, his body attack was on point. Up until then, Sergio, his previous fight against Gustavo Lemos was probably his biggest statement win, knocking out a guy that gave Richardson Hitchens 12 tough rounds. This one was even better, getting to Denys Berinchyk, being the first guy to beat him, first guy to stop him. Your thoughts on Keyshawn's performance?
I mean, look, you can look at both sides of the coin. Or the bad part, he fought a 36-year-old fighter that was a lot slower, that didn't have that one-punch power. You look at the cons of that. But let's look at the pros of that. What was the positive things? This was a tough, strong, undefeated, 19-0, confident fighter, champion. What are we debating here? That was an excellent win. That was a great win by Keyshawn Davis, who did it back to back. Like you said, the Lemos was a statement victory, and I said he was special. That was the first time I actually really paid attention to him, and I thought he was special. This one topped it. This one topped it against an undefeated fighter that's a champion, a belt holder with that Ukrainian background. Ukrainian, I believe it was.
Ukrainian,
yeah. But we know those guys have a long pedigree in the amateurs, and as pros, they're the goods. This guy ran over him. He walked right through him. Keyshawn Davis is a problem at lightweight, and that's the reason fighters like Tank don't mention his name. Shakur mentions his name.
Tank has mentioned his name, though. Tank is actually giving him flowers for saying, like, he's actually
But will
doing
he
more
fight
than
him?
Shakur. I don't know. If you believe Tank Davis, he's got 2 fights left, and one of them is Lamar Roach.
I don't believe him because his history doesn't say it. Keyshawn calls out these guys. Andy Cruz calls out these guys. Those are the dudes that I believe. Tank doesn't do the talking. He knocks people out once he gets in the ring, but it's not the people that we want to see him be in the ring with knocking out. He's not doing it against champions, but this isn't about Tank. It's about Keyshawn. This guy's special, and I think he's him, Andy Cruz, between both of them, one of them is going to have to take that top spot. And they have history. So until one of them gets through the other, we're going to see who's the goods. But man, both of them have a high trajectory.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that Keyshawn got this knockout because I went back and watched that Berinchyk versus Emmanuel Navarrete fight. And Navarrete is heavy-handed, but he's slow, right? So like Berincyk's lack of speed didn't show up or wasn't a big factor in that fight. Against Keyshawn, who was fast, who was sharp, who was accurate, who was all the attributes of a great fighter. Like Berinchyk just had no chance. You knew from the opening round he had no chance. And I just loved the investment that Keyshawn made to the body. I love when guys go down and go out off of body shots. It's a beautiful thing to see because you know how difficult it is to do stuff
when
like
you're
that.
a young fighter with a dozen fights doing that. He's fighting like a seasoned pro, like a seasoned champion. I don't have to watch too many Keyshawn Davis tapes. I saw that one Lemos fight and I told you right off the bat, this kid's the truth.
Yeah, I've watched him. I've been at a few of his fights ringside for Top Rank, and you could see the potential. It's the power you didn't see till the last couple of fights, right? Like where, look, he's 25 years old.
Power impresses you. Other things impress me.
Well, the skill level has always impressed me. It's just that he's growing into his man strength now at 25 years old, and that's now manifesting itself in these fights. Lemos, we called the Lemos Hitchens fight. That was a tough fight.
He got rocked in that fight, I think it was.
Blowing through Lemos the way that he did was wild. And then just blowing through Berinchyk. Those are two, world title challenger level fighter in Lemos, world title holder in Denys Berinchyk. Keyshawn Davis, it gets exaggerated sometimes saying statement win, but that was a real statement win. And now you look at the picture at 135 pounds. Now, he and Shakur are never going to fight each other. Like I was sitting with Shakur earlier this week and I was kind of prodding him about that. Like, what would it take? What would it take for you and Keyshawn Davis to fight? He goes, it ain't happening. He goes, we have some great sparring sessions. If y'all want to buy tickets to the sparring sessions, you can do that, but it's not going to happen. And he actually believes that Keyshawn is more likely to fight at 140, sooner rather than later, which makes some sense. You see him against Berinchyk. Like he's like 3 inches taller. He's naturally bigger. You can see him moving up to 140 pounds. So if I'm Keyshawn Davis, you don't want to go, if you're comfortable at 135, stay there for a little while longer. Maybe you take a title defense in your next fight if you don't get a Tank Davis fight. But I'd be looking north to 140 pretty quickly because that's where a lot of the action is. That's where a lot of the talent is at 140 pounds. So maybe 1 or 2 more fights at 135 and then go up to 140.
I agree. If it's not Loma or Tank, then go up to 140 because no one else makes sense. Even if you're number one fighting, number one contenders, it's not going to make sense. He's already calling the biggest, baddest names at lightweight. You can bet he's going to want to do it at 140. He has the talent. He has the size. He has the youth. He's going to grow into that size easily. I can see him being a multi-division champion.
Yeah. And if I'm Tank Davis and I want a big fight before the end of the year, I think he'd like to get Lomachenko. They were close on those negotiations, but we don't know where Loma is in his career. But I wouldn't mind taking Keyshawn. Keyshawn's, talks a big game. He obviously has an entertaining style. He's coming off 2 knockout wins. That's a fight I think I would really explore if I was Tank Davis before the end of the year. Also, over this past weekend, we had Arnold Barboza coming up with the biggest win of his career, defeating Jack Catterall in Manchester, England, to become the interim WBO 140-pound champion. You and I talked about this last week, and both of us picked Catterall by decision, in large part because we didn't think that Barboza was going to be able to get a decision.
That was the only reason why.
Over there.
That was the only reason why. It had nothing to do with Barboza. It had to do with the judges, and we know how that works.
We both thought it was going to be a nip and tuck fight. We both thought it was going to be really close. It was exactly that. And the only difference is that the judges got it right. At least 2 of them did. Fair, right down the middle, scored at 7-5 in favor of Arnold Barboza. What did you think of the way he fought on Saturday?
It wasn't just the judges. There was fighters there that were scoring the fight, and everyone had it for Catterall as well. I didn't get it. But look, I'm glad they got it right. I'm glad that Barboza came back with that championship belt. It's not the major title, but
it's the interim title. Yeah,
it's the interim title.
Still a big win for Barboza.
A big step forward, and it makes him a mandatory with Teofimo, who's the top dog at 140 and a legitimate 140-pound champion. I'm proud of Arnold Barboza, and I called him, I DM'd him, and I told him how proud I was because he did it in style, he did it with strategy. Everyone that watches it, Todd Grisham actually said it perfectly. He goes, you know what, man? That was kind of a boring, entertaining fight, and it's kind of an oxymoron.
It was a chess match. It was a chess
oxymoron, and I knew exactly what he was trying to say. I was never bored in that fight. I was watching it 1 through 12, and I was like, I knew what Barboza was doing. It was footwork, it was range, it was feints, and then he was throwing that 2-1 against a southpaw. You don't want to lead with a jab 1-2. You want to lead with a 2 and then power 1. He kept doing that over and over and over, and he kept backing out. Anytime that Catterall wanted to counter anything, and he was waiting too long doing that, the footwork wasn't letting him. Barboza just he is. We're talking about Keyshawn Davis being special. I don't think Barboza has that type of special natural ability, but Barboza is going to be an issue for guys like that because of the jab, the punch selection, the variation. And I've always heard this dude's a gym rat and he works really hard. He's never had issues with the weight. Golden Boy, and touts him. So hard work and the fact that he can follow a game plan to the end, he can go on enemy territory halfway across the world and come back with a belt. This guy's going to be a problem for anybody that's naturally talented, faster, or stronger because he has all the other things that you need.
I thought he had a great game plan coming into this fight. And more importantly, I thought he made great adjustments in this fight. You watch the first couple of rounds, and I thought Catterall won the first 2. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, Barboza's being a little too aggressive. Catterall is a good counter puncher. This isn't going to go well. You could see the live odds on the screen starting to really favor Catterall. They were favored in the beginning, but they started to go up in favor of Catterall. From the third round on, though, Barboza settled down. And he was still being aggressive, throwing that 2-1, like you said, but he wasn't being reckless with it. He wasn't giving Catterall time to counter. And Catterall's at his best when you're coming at him, right? You look at the Prograis fight. Got his second half of the fight dominated because Prograis came forward. Josh Taylor, he beat because Josh Taylor likes to come forward. Barboza was cagey in there, man. He was smart. He just made good decisions in the ring. That was a really good game plan by his team and really good adjustments by him during this fight. I was really impressed with that.
Same here, man. South on money in the house. And like I said, I go back, I made my roots in that gym, in East LA, all the gyms all over there. So the fact that we have another, top talent coming out of that area, I'm really happy for him, his team, his father, everyone in South Almani gym. And this kid has charisma. I think he can be a potential, maybe not a star, but I think he can be the B-side in a star attraction. And that's how he can maybe knock down the door to become a star in the Latin community in the Southern California.
Well, let's talk about that because, look, he is now unequivocally the mandatory for Teofimo Lopez. He has the interim belt. The WBO has said, and I hope they stick by this, WBO, follow your ruling. 180 days, about 6 months' time. That's how long Teofimo has to defend his belt against Arnold Barboza. How does a Barboza-Teofimo fight go, do you think?
Well, Teofimo will take more chances than Catterall. He's a lot bigger. He's a lot stronger, a lot more powerful. And Teofimo has footwork as well. This is another fight where I would have to, this is how I'm neutral. I'm a big fan of Barboza, but I'm going to keep it neutral. I would have to favor Teofimo's experience. I think he's stronger. The speed might be similar, but I just think athletically and speed-wise and the experience and the names on your resume, Teofimo's still top dog, man. That guy's going to be hard to beat when he has his head on right.
Well, there's the question, too, because it doesn't seem right now that Teofimo has his head on right. Like, it seems like he's all over the place.
But the beauty of guys like Barboza and a lot of fighters like that is they like being the B-side. They like being counted out because that makes them work harder in the gym. So, it's no skin off their teeth for guys like me to say, you might not win this fight. All right, I'll prove you.
I think he can win that fight. Look, I think Barboza prefers guys that come forward. Like, he's a natural kind of mover and counterpuncher. In the Jose Ramirez fight, Ramirez didn't let his hands go as much as he should, but he came forward. Barboza hit, moved, stuck. That's kind of his game plan. He's not a power puncher.
Yeah, but Teofimo boxes in the back foot too. We've seen him box.
Teofimo likes to come forward though. That's
he
his
likes
game
to come forward, but he also knows how to box going backwards. I mean, if he has to.
Well, he like Josh Taylor. Like Teofimo likes guys that come in there and want to bang, right? The guys that come forward, like a Josh Taylor, like a Lomachenko. The guys that box more, though, the Sandro Martins, the Jermaine Ortizes, they've given him problems. And I think Barboza is kind of cut out of that cloth. I think he can give Teofimo a lot of problems in that fight. All right, let's get to this weekend's card, which even without Shakur against Schofield is a tremendous fight card, the deepest card I've ever seen from top to bottom. And let's start at the top, where we've got Artur Beterbiev against Dmitry Bivol, part 2. The first fight, a majority decision win for Beterbiev back in October. We waited 6 years, Sergio, to get that first fight in the ring, to get those two guys in the ring. We only have to wait 133 days to get the rematch. What are your early thoughts on part 2 between Beterbiev and Bivol?
It's going to look the same because these guys are just, their style clashes so well. The only adjustment is the fact that Beterbiev is not going to let Bivol start off as fast as he did in the first fight. And then Bivol's not going to let Beterbiev close out the show in the championship rounds. It's going to be a nip and tuck fight again. I think the early rounds, because of the fresher legs, the youth, and now the experience, Bivol's still going to win that first half of the fight. The difference is how aggressive is he going to get in that first half? Is he going to be more comfortable now that he knows, he felt the power, he felt the speed, he felt the size of Beterbiev, or is it going to be, pot shotting? I mean, Bivol won that first fight, in my opinion. And I say it all the time. I think he landed 50% of his power punches. Anytime you hear that, we know who the clear winner was. This wasn't a clear winner, but I did think he won. But Beterbiev threw more punches. Mm-hmm. But most of those punches were landing on the glove. You have to give defensive points for that. So I think that's going to be a big difference. I don't think Bivol should feel comfortable catching those hard punches in the glove anymore, because then the judges will probably count that. So focus more on keeping your range, using footwork, and moving your head, making this man miss completely. If he throws a 3-punch combination, if you can make him miss at least one good punch out of that and then block the other two, or block one and then one glancing blow, that right there is you're showing the judges, okay, he's taking out the power of that punch. He dipped one side. He didn't show your defense. Not just your footwork, show your upper body movement. And then that, I think, is going to be the deciding factor.
I was asking Bivol this week about what he needs to do differently. And to your point, he said throw more punches, because he was out-volumed in that fight. And that obviously made the difference in two of the judges' mind. One of them had it 8-4 in favor of Beterbiev, which I think we both agree was too wide. It was interesting looking at some of the punch stats. Bivol is considered the better jabber, yet they were only separated by, I think, 9 or 10 landed jabs. Beterbiev is considered the better power puncher, yet they were only separated by 10, I think, or 9 or 10 landed power shots. So they're very, very close in all the major statistics. I think if you're Beterbiev, one of the things you got to focus on early is going to the body. Only 19% of the shots that Beterbiev landed in that first fight were body shots. You and I both know, Sergio, if you want to slow a guy down and keep him, in the center of the ring, keep him from moving as much as Bivol did, right here, target that midsection, go to the body. That's not usually Beterbiev's MO. He kind of likes to throw those 6-punch combinations upstairs, but I think he needs to go downstairs to the body to help him, gain some momentum in those middle and those late rounds. And I agree with you. Bivol, he definitely coughed up 2 of the last 3 rounds. Those championship rounds and the 10th round, he needed to be better in. You can't allow a guy like Beterbiev to steal rounds just by volume punching. I think that's got to be an adjustment. He's got to kind of match at least some of that output in the second
Beterbiev
fight.
Wasn't stealing nothing. He was earning those.
Well, like the eye-catching stuff at the end, right? Is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, because he's content hitting you in the shoulders or in the gloves or side of the head. Where they're not clean shots, but Beterbiev's comfortable with that because he doesn't have to hit you clean to hurt you. And Bivol felt that power, and he had to respect that brute force, and he knew that if he lands a good shot, a glancing shot top of the head, those legs can be gone. It's going to be a similar fight. Just to put a button on it, it's going to be a similar fight. We have way too much power on the end of Beterbiev. He just has way too much experience. And then the fresher legs of Bivol, that jab of Bivol.
You keep saying though,
and then the variation, the punch variation also was the difference as well, because Bivol kept it with the same punches coming in, the jab, the hard right hand, and then the hook. The variation on Bivol was different. Lead right hands, the jab upstairs, the right hand downstairs, the lead with the left hook. So everything was on Bivol's part except the pressure and the volume.
You keep saying the fresher legs, and I get it because Beterbiev just turned 40. But what's crazy about Beterbiev is that his best performances have come in the last few years. Like 2022, blows through Joe Smith, a complete demolition of a guy with a great chin, 175 pounds. Last year, blows out Callum Smith, very good fighter, former champion at 168, all the physical tools advantage going to that fight. And then going the distance, first time in his career, going the full 12 rounds, he outclasses Dmitry Bivol, at least according to the judges, and wins those final rounds. So yeah, like chronologically, Dmitry Bivol is younger and has the fresher legs, but from what I've seen recently, there's nothing wrong with Artur Beterbiev's engine. There's nothing wrong with his legs, with his motor, anything that has to do with the physical part of it.
Well, I guess Joe Smith's a heavy puncher with heavy feet.
So but nobody's gone through Joe Smith like that. Bivol went the distance with Joe Smith.
No. Beterbiev, yeah. What he
Zerto
lacks,
went the difference with
what he
Joe
lacks
Smith.
in, what Beterbiev lacks in foot speed, he makes up with foot positioning. And he knows how to make that ring smaller and smaller by inching that front leg closer and closer, and then stepping the right leg out. And cutting off the ring. The ring is a square, right? And then if you step out to the right, you turn it into two triangles. If you put two triangles, it's kind of a square. That's what he does. He knows how to fight sideways and then go forward. And those are master ring generals. They know how to make it smaller and smaller. Chavez did that. A lot of Mexican fighters have mastered that, making it smaller because they don't have the foot speed to keep up with boxers. And Beterbiev is just, he's a killer.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a great fight. I think Beterbiev stops him. I do.
You've been saying that. I don't think so. I think it looks exactly the same way. I think if anything happens, I think if anyone gets really hurt and rocked, I think it might even be Beterbiev because he's 40 years old.
I know, but
he's 40 years old, man.
It hasn't changed how great he's been recently. Like the two reasons I think he stops him is one, I think that coming out of that first fight, Bivol was a little banged up there. Like he was talking about his hand, like how bad his hand was hurt having to block those punches.
Yeah.
Like I think the 12 rounds might have softened him up a little bit. And Bivol keeps talking about throwing more punches. You throw more punches, you expose yourself more. And I think that's something Beterbiev can take advantage of too, throwing with him. And he's the heavier-handed guy.
A lot of people, especially people that aren't in boxing, don't understand that when you're blocking punches, when you have that earmuff defense,
that hurts.
You still are getting hurt. It's painful. I hate it. You've never seen me do the earmuff defense. I made guys miss completely because I didn't want to get hit. A lot of guys don't like that shelling up defense. You have to really, really be accustomed to that from the amateurs to the pros to mastering that defense. And you have to have the right body structure, a small head, wide shoulders, long arms, and then you can cover your entire body from elbow, covering your ribs all the way to the top of your temple. So a lot of fighters aren't accustomed to that. I don't think Bivol should be doing that earmuff defense against a beast like Beterbiev. You make them miss completely and keep and do exactly what you did with your footwork and jab.
It's going to be a great fight. And I love, by the way, that David Benavidez is going to be here.
Oh, yeah. I just read that. That's awesome.
Ready to go next against the winner. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what, we don't know what's going to happen on fight night, but if Beterbiev wins, Beterbiev versus Benavidez, that's violent. That is just violent between two guys that can punch.
There was, man, I just read it. I read something in an article. It named it perfectly what this fight was. It's it's slipping up. I would have loved to have ended the show with that title. It had something to do with just violence, but not violence, something else. Oh man, I wish I would.
Well, thanks for offering nothing on that take right there. All right, so we've got a couple of the fights on this card that I want to get into. You've got the heavyweight fight, which is the co-main event, the IBF Heavyweight Championship on the line. Daniel Dubois going up against Joseph Parker. This fight, there are a lot of reasons I love this fight. One of them is that it's proof that losses in boxing don't matter because both these guys, Dubois and Parker, were way down their luck in the last few years. Dubois coming off back-to-back or recent losses against Joe Joyce and Alexander Usyk. People were branding him a quitter, quit against Joe Joyce, went down on a jab against Usyk. No way he comes back. That dude bounces back with, 3 straight wins over top contenders, Jarrell Miller, Filip Perkovic, and most recently against Anthony Joshua. Same thing with Joseph Parker, who gets knocked out as well by Joe Joyce. He comes back, takes some low-level wins, beats Deontay Wilder, gets up from 2 knockdowns to beat Zhilei Zhang. We've been around these guys all week, Sergio. Joseph Parker, brimming with confidence at the moment. Danny Dubois, has so much nervous energy. You see him there, he's just dying to get in the ring. When we first talked to him on Tuesday, he's ready to go. I think it's going to be a really competitive fight. What do you think?
I'm picking Joseph Parker for the upset.
Really?
I've been saying that for a few weeks already because Joseph Parker has more history fighting bigger men. I think Joseph Parker is a tougher fighter. Dubois, if Dubois is at brute strength, he has the size, he has the momentum, he has the confidence now as a champion.
I mean, they both got momentum.
But
you beat Deontay Wilder when Wilder at that point was still a big deal.
They both have momentum, but I think Dubois has more momentum because Dubois had maybe one of the most incredible 13 months in the last 2 years of any fighter. Could have easily been fighter of the year. That right there gives a fighter confidence. Forget the IBF belt. It's the names that he beat. And if you look at Joseph Parker, if you go way back to 2016, when he beat an undefeated Andy Ruiz, right? That fight, I mean, that win aged nicely. He was the first one to go the distance when Anthony Joshua was knocking out everybody. Now, Anthony Joshua had a 100% knockout ratio until he faced Joseph Parker. He went to decision. Those back-to-back fights with Chisora. He's faced big men, tall men, heavy men. Zhilei Zhang outweighed him by 40 pounds. 40 pounds. And he was way bigger, and he's a southpaw. Was able to, get up from 2 knockdowns and beat him. That's resilience. That's experience. That's confidence. And again, like I told Andy Lee to his face yesterday, it's because of Andy Lee and what he's bringing to the table and the genius that he brings to that corner. Andy Lee was a special fighter as an amateur Olympian, a special champion as a professional, and now he's becoming a special corner and voice in his corner. And I think Joseph Parker is going to do something no one expects to do extraordinary. I think he's going to steal the show.
Yeah, on Andy Lee, one thing Parker told me this week was that when he started work with Andy, one of the things he said was hey, just start me all over again. I'm a blank slate.
Beautiful.
Teach me the game, which I think is really hard for any fighter to do, much less one that's already been a heavyweight champion of the world. But he did that, and it's paid dividends. He is a much improved fighter. He's got great game plans coming to the fight. I thought the Wilder game plan was brilliant, finding a way to stay away from that right hand all night long, pitching a shutout in that fight. Remarkable. Zhang outboxing Zhilei Zhang.
Even the fight when Joseph Parker, even the fights that he's lost, he still has looked good. He still had moments where he looked good. He was doing good. I think it was the Joyce fight. He had body shots and he was doing really well. It was a close fight. One judge had it 96-94. So he has the formula to beat anybody, but he has to do it from beginning to end, and he has to convince those 3 judges. But I'm favoring him over Danny Dubois. I think Dubois is going to be dangerous for 4 rounds, maybe 5. After that, it's the Joseph Parker show. That's my opinion.
So the question I have about Parker in this fight, though, is does he have the chin to hold up to what's going to be a pretty strong...
No, but what makes you think he's going to get hit in the chin like that?
Because Dubois has been hitting everybody in the chin like that. No. Some pretty good guys in the chin. Putting aside Jarrell Miller, Filip Perkovic, contender, hit him in the chin a lot. Anthony Joshua hit him in the chin a lot. I think it's and Joseph Parker, getting knocked out by Joe Joyce, getting knocked down twice by Zhilei Zhang. He's shown some vulnerability there. So I think Dubois, who's a younger, stronger, better version than all those guys, I think he poses a much bigger risk.
Vulnerabilities, he won those fights. Deontay Wilder was...
We didn't win the Joyce fight.
Most menacing punchers in the last 20 years. Zhilei Zhang is one of the biggest punchers in heavyweight right now. He beat both those guys. I don't care if one was close and one was an easy win. He beat them.
Yeah.
He took their punches. He beat them. He executed game plan, and Power's not intimidating them. Power does not intimidate guys that use their feet, have high fight IQ, and have experience. Joseph Parker has all three of those things.
All right, last one. We've got a pretty good American fight on this card, and that is Vergil Ortiz against Israel Madrimov. Ortiz, obviously, the U.S.-based fighter. Madrimov also fights out of Southern California. This will be the toughest test for Vergil Ortiz since he made his move to 154 pounds. He's coming off that great win over Sergey Berinchyk, but Madrimov is a completely different type of fighter. We saw that in Madrimov's last fight against Terence Crawford. I love that Ortiz is taking this fight. I think it's a tremendous fight, but my early read on it is that this is a really tough matchup for Vergil because Madrimov is not the type of guy that is going to stand there and bang with you. He's not Sergey Berinchyk. And if Madrimov looks anything like the guy we saw against Crawford, which is herky-jerky, difficult to track down, it's going to be difficult for a fighter like Vergil who doesn't have the experience of a Terence Crawford, doesn't have the overall experience, including amateur ranks, of Israel Madrimov. I think this is a really tough fight for Vergil to win, Sergio.
I agree, and it's because of footwork. If you remember the fight that we called against Michael McKinson, I think McKinson didn't come to fight, didn't come to win. He came to box, and he came to irritate and frustrate Vergil Ortiz and get him to the second half of the fight and try to jab his way to maybe winning some rounds. That's a man that couldn't punch in McKinson, but he had success with his footwork, with his movement. Now add Madrimov, who can move, who can punch, who has a footwork, and who's a natural 154-pounder. The momentum is on his side. I would think that he's the favorite. I haven't looked at the odds.
Yeah.
But I'm keeping it real again, just like I did with picking against Arnold Barboza if he fights Steele. Vergil Ortiz is special. He's trained by my favorite trainer in Robert Garcia. I think he's an incredible talent, power puncher, confident, smart, everything. I want him to make all the money in the world and be a star. But Madrimov is all wrong for him, man. All wrong for him. Madrimov is going to be comfortable just touching the gloves of Vergil. Vergil likes to block with the earmuff defense coming in, and guys like Madrimov just are comfortable touching that and then getting on an angle and then stabbing you downstairs to get the elbows down, then coming right back upstairs. He's going to be content hitting gloves the entire time. Vergil's going to get frustrated. He's going to be, and we've seen Vergil frustrated before with lesser opposition, not guys that are like Madrimov. So, yeah, man, I'm with the bookies on this one. I think it's going to be hard to beat Madrimov. I don't think you even hurt him. I don't even think you land something clean on him. Madrimov is going to have he's gonna have a special night, and I don't think none of these guys are seeing what Madrimov is going to bring to the table.
Yeah, he's so disciplined. He's a lot stronger than he looks.
Yeah.
And he's the natural 54.
You see his workouts? You ever see his workouts on social media?
Yeah.
It's nuts, man. He's like a gymnast.
Yeah. I mean, before the Crawford fight, he was blasting some guys out of there. He won his title over here in Riyadh, blasting an opponent out of there. So he's got real power. And Vergil too, we talked at the top of the show about this issue some guys are having, maybe like a Schofield, with this 3-day weigh-in, right? Vergil, from what I'm told, has been having the same issue with that. Because Vergil, we know in the past, had some issues cutting down in weight. Not so much has been at 154, but in his years at 147, well-documented issues there. What kind of condition is Vergil going to be in on fight? And I thought it was interesting talking to him at the Grand Arrivals, where he said, yeah, I'm good with this weight, but I can fight at 160 too. That's kind of, it feels like that's him saying, hey, I'm ready to go up in weight at some point as well.
That one right there actually raised some, not concern, but a red flag, saying wait a minute, you just have 2 fights at 154. You're already thinking about moving up in weight. I mean, you haven't even won a title, at a major title, at 147, at 154, and you're already thinking about bouncing up to middleweight. He's a big kid. He's a big, strong, powerful kid, and he's still growing. But yeah, if you're not winning titles in the divisions, when you're knocking people out and you're number one contender and you're beating these guys, the higher you go, the less your power is the less you're gonna take your power with you.
Yeah, he doesn't feel like a 160 to me.
I was a natural 160 pounder. I think that's his limit. I think that's gonna be his limit. But yeah, if he's not knocking people out at 154, 160, he's definitely not going to do it.
And this is, just to circle back to this fight, like this is a tough fight because he wasn't looking for this fight. Like he was looking for Boots Ennis. Like that was what this fight was supposed to be on February 22nd. Boots decided to go a different direction. Virgil wanted to stay on the card. They offered up Madrimov. I don't think that Golden Boy would have made Virgil versus Madrimov in like Texas. I don't believe it. I think there's just too much money and too much opportunity to be on a card like this for Virgil to pass up. It's like another one of those things where it's like, I don't believe this guy and his team would have taken this fight
if it wasn't for a boatload of money.
It wasn't.
How much is he getting paid? You know, you're in the know.
He's low seven figures. He's getting good money. He's getting career high money for this fight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a close fight for low seven figures, and you know, it's a win-win for him.
Yeah.
If it's a Boachuk type fight, right, where it was a fight of the year,
be a Boachuk type fight.
If it's a fight of the year type fight, and if say that fight would have won against Virgil, he didn't lose. I mean, it was a tight fight. People thought Boachuk won. He knocked him down 2 times.
And Boachuk came right back. People already forgot about that loss for Boachuk.
There you go. So if he loses that type of fight, then it was a win-win for Virgil Ortiz because he won a boatload of money. It was another entertaining fight, and he lost against a master boxer in Madrimov.
Are you planning to like ask people here for your opportunity to fight? Like you're gonna just walk around on Saturday and pitch yourself as the 45-year-old ready to return ex-contender champion? Like, hey, it's the 20-year anniversary of the Contender, guys. Let's get me back in the ring.
I'm golfing tomorrow.